Thank you for joining today's webinar, and it's about selecting your platform. So hopefully by now you've decided you are going to run a crowdfunding campaign, and you've decided the type of crowdfunding campaign. And that's really going to determine what type of or which platform you're going to go for. So let's start off at donations. So donations, we're looking at GoFundMe, Fundraiser. Those are sort of the generic sort of donations crowdfunding platforms. And I say generic because they cover every different type of campaign. The one thing you're going to look for is which works in your geography. And we're going to hear that quite a bit in this webinar. So for the case of GoFundMe, they are eligible in a number of countries around the world. I think it's about 37. But when you think there's 190 countries in the world, that does mean that there's going to be some countries that aren't covered. In the case of Fundraiser, they are in more countries. So, just double check where you're raising your funds from and make sure that the country is eligible. There are some niche players. So say some countries that don't have access to those biggies, you'll find some other, say a local platform. Or the other option is you might want to find a niche. So say you're promoting a book or a film, have a look at some of the local platforms that are specifically in that space. What you tend to find with donations is people come in and they donate to wherever they get the link from. So they don't tend to sort of look through and go, oh, I'm going to donate to this cause and this cause and this cause. That doesn't tend to happen with the sort of general platforms. But if you have, say, a film one or a book one or an animal charity one, you may find that people will sort of literally read through and find the cause that's closest to their heart and to give to that one. So that's what to look for on the donation side. On the reward side, we always know the big sort of duopoly of Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And again, similar to what we've seen on the donations one, you might find that there might be, a book one or a film one, a very niche. But looking at these generic ones, these are sites that people might come in and start noodling around and having a look at, they might just back what they like the look of. And particularly those ones that are promoted. So this is where playing the algorithm is important. So ensuring you get that 11% on that first day will mean that you're likely to be picked, and you might get emailed to their whole following or to people who like your sort of product or service. So, it's good to sort of get that sort of coverage from those big platforms. But there's also some challenges with some of those big platforms too. In the case of Kickstarter, you have to have a finished product. It can't just be sort of a piece of paper. It can't just be a sort of a prototype. You actually need to have a finished product. So that will often help determine, which way to go. The other thing is this, what we call all or nothing, or whether you just take whatever you make. Now, what that means by all or nothing is if say you need $20,000, which is enough money for you to make 100, which is the minimum order of your item, then if you got 19,500, then you can't place the order. So the all or nothing prevents you from taking money when you can't actually fulfill. I would say if you got to 19,500, I'd scrape together the other 500 to get yourself to the 20,000. But if you don't hit that 20,000, then you can't actually do anything meaningful. And often we talk about being able to do something meaningful with the money. So in this case, you want to do the all or nothing. Now, if it's a case of actually, you need 20,000 to do 100, but you could actually do a more piecemeal version. You could actually get all the parts together and make your product. You can do it in ones and twos and threes. So actually, if you only raised 1,000, you could still make something happen. Then that in that case, what you might want to do is have a lower target and still do an all or nothing. Or you might want to just do a campaign that you just take the money that you raise. And that's what you've got to look for, especially in rewards campaigns. You know what's the minimum you have to raise to do something meaningful, and check that your platform that you choose will allow you to do that. So will allow you to be all or nothing, or if it forces you down that route and you can't do anything else, you might want to go for a campaign or a platform that allows you to have a lower amount and to your target and still take the money, because you can still do something meaningful with it. I've talked a bit about Indiegogo and Kickstarter and some of the other niche players, but it is also good to see some new generic platforms coming in. The ones that we've seen recently, BackerKit, have just introduced their platform. Still needs a bit of work. Let's keep an eye on it. I'll keep you posted. See, there doesn't seem to be any new functionality with it. So, I think if you're using some of their technology, and we'll talk about that in another webinar, then I think you might want to consider it. But if not, I really can't see much value in it at the moment. But I'm willing to have my mind changed on that one. And then Crowdfunder, which is spelt like fundraiser with an R on the end, not an ER. They've launched their beta too, and that's showing a bit more sort of differentiation. So I'm watching the space quite closely. I'll keep you posted on the changes we see. But certainly you might want to consider those two new platforms, if you're doing a rewards campaign. One of the things I find about the smaller platforms is it's easier for them to support you, and they want to be successful. Sometimes with the big platforms, you can get lost unless you hit that algorithm, that's of 11%, on day one. And then you might get some extra support. Otherwise, you can get lost in all the different campaigns. So next we're going to be, I'm actually just going to jump straight to sort of the equity, because that's really, with all the people who've joined up, that seems to be the area that they're focused in on. Now, one of the things about equity crowdfunding is, it's because you're selling securities, there's far more regulation around it. So just one of the things to be very mindful of is that you might end up actually having to be in a specific geography. So you will have to have a business that's active in that geography, and you'll also have to be very sort of specific about where you're raising funds from. You can't be raising funds from people in other geographies unless they're accredited investors. So I'm currently based in Canada, and my Canadian clients, they can raise from Canadian platforms. If they want to raise out of the US, it either has to be accredited investors. So we've talked before about people with over $1 million, excluding their principal private residence, people who earn over $200,000 a year or $300,000 with their spouse. Those are the things that you're looking for an accredited investor, which allows them to invest, say, from the US or from anywhere else in the world. And they have to prove that. But, if you're looking in the US, then you'd be looking to use a US platform. Europe, now you're quite lucky because you've got Crowdcube and Seeders, and Crowdcube, and there are some other smaller players, but those two are the biggest ones. The great thing about Crowdcube is they can raise from almost anywhere in the world, except for US, Canada, Japan. There's a few others, so just double check. But if you're based in Europe, I would seriously consider looking at those sort of platforms. Again, it comes back to geography, as we were saying, because you can raise from such a broad area. Now, the challenge, and this is always a challenge with all of these, is you then have to also promote yourself in those areas as well. So, do you really want to sort of make sure that you're in those sort of broad areas as well? So just be very mindful when you're trying to sort of raise funds, where you are located and how you're going to reach the people that you're targeting. So just a bit of a challenge there. But, overall, I think what we're seeing is very much that there's much more clarity around where you can raise funds from. And so, once you've got the geography sorted, then you can start comparing the different types of platforms. And it's a bit like I was saying with Indiegogo and Kickstarter. They're very big platforms. I always say work on the basis you're going to get nothing from the platform. So if you work on the basis that nothing's going to come from the platform, you're going to bring everything to it, then anything you get from the platform is sort of icing on the cake. So with some of these big European platforms, they've got over 1 million people registered. With the ones in North America, some of them are at that level, some of them are sort of, might only have, say, 40,000, 50,000 registered. But if you assume you're going to get nothing from that, that's a healthy way to look at it. Don't go for the big ones because you think that they're going to bring the volume of traffic. You're going to bring most of those retail investors, and then you will get some extra investment from them. So size isn't everything. Similarly, with the Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you can get a bit lost. You might get a campaign manager, but the campaign manager may only have half an hour a week or even less to give you a support. And that's really where our program kicks in to help you, because in that half an hour, there's, they can look at things very quickly. They can give you some quick feedback, but they may not give you that in-depth help that you need, because it is different running a crowdfunding campaign to, selling your products or service. And so we have to help you pivot a bit. Hey, we're here to help you. So looking specifically at the platforms, as I say, go for the big platforms. Often the structure is very, well developed. They've had everything in place for a while. The technology works. They can have some new additional functions. One of the things I always like to look out for on the platforms is what's the tracking with them. So some platforms will allow you to put sort of tracking on, and then you can see where the leads came from, because we're going to be developing a funnel, and we want lots of people to come in at the top and filter down to get at the investors at the bottom. And so you need to know which of those channels is the most effective for you. Are you finding that your press releases are getting lots of hits and it's the right sort of person who's then coming in and investing? Or is it, say, something on LinkedIn? Because you want to be able to monitor not just where the traffic comes from, but then who converts and actually invests in you. Because it could be great, you get loads of traffic, but if it's not the right traffic, if they're not coming in and investing, then it's no good really. So what we're looking for is, you're looking for the right geography, you're looking for the right level of support, and some of those smaller, newer platforms, don't discount them. You already know you're bringing all your people to them, but they want you to be successful, so they may be more supportive. Just keep that in mind. The challenge with some of those smaller platforms can be that people may not have heard of them, and they're still building a bit of a trust. In Europe, crowdfunding is much more common, and even in Australia and New Zealand, it's been around for longer than it has in North America or been active. So people are more comfortable crowdfunding. So if they see a name, oh, I know what this is, yeah, they understand the crowdfunding, they know the platform, they can trust it because they're giving away personal data and they're putting their money in there. But in North America, you might have to do a bit more selling to explain what crowdfunding is and to explain the platform. So that's one thing when you're selecting your platform. Do you have a platform that's well known and therefore easy to explain? Or do you have to actually sell the platform? So you're selling the investment, then you're selling crowdfunding, then you're selling the platform. It can start to get a bit complicated. So, perhaps that's the time when you're selecting your platform, you want to understand what marketing they're doing to promote themselves, to make sure that you're not having to do the marketing for them. So, it's definitely when you're interviewing the platform, and I suggest you do, you will want to see what marketing they're going to be doing. of their platform, not necessarily of you, but of their platform and of crowdfunding, so that you're not having to do their work for them. So those would be my suggestions on sort of how to help you select the right platform. And as I said, interview them. They're going to be interviewing you and making sure that you're crowdfundable and crowdfunding ready. And if you're able to say, hey, I've joined the Crowdfunding Hub and I'm going through their program, that should give them some peace of mind. The other thing that some of them will be looking for is they may be looking for amounts of money raised already. So some of those European platforms, they want you to already have 60 to 70% of the funds already in the bank. So you've already ring fenced it. You're going to have the cash in the bank. It's so that your success and you're using the platform to get those final lot of retail investors and perhaps even go into overfunding. Whereas in North America, perhaps less money. Sometimes it's 10, 20, 30% before you can go public. But what they are looking for, they may be looking for your followers on social media. They may be looking for your email database size. They may be looking for the number of customers you have. So just have a look out for those. Now, one thing I just want to mention before I leave the platforms is there is a fourth option, and that's the white label platforms. So you're going to be bringing your people in already. So a white label platform literally clips onto the edge of your website and allows people to invest there and then on your website fully legitimately. The KYP, know your product, KYC, know your customer, is all done by the platform. And so it can be a really effective way of raising capital, and also a lot cheaper. A lot of these platforms, and you're especially in the equity side, you're looking at 6, 7, 8%. Sometimes they want warrants as well, other upfront fees. So I always say it's not cheap, it's not quick. And that's probably some bit of evidence of that. But with the white label platforms, they can tend to be cheaper. But the challenge can be what I was saying before. The challenge can be the fact that people will go, can I invest through the platform? Can I invest through your company website? So, you'll still have to help people, walk people through, knowing that this is completely legitimate. I always think, be very open and honest. We're using a third party, exempt market dealer, the term dealer representative. These are sort of terms that you'd be looking to use. Platform, regulated by, those are sort of words that you're going to be using so that people know that you're doing everything legitimately. But I would certainly say some of these white platforms are really quite interesting at the moment, and definitely consider that when you're looking for your requirements. The way I typically do this is I just do an Excel. I put through, sort of things like, do they have other projects in this space, a history of success? Do they work in the geography where my retail investors are? What's their pricing? What's their support like? And then just compare the different platforms, and then come back with, which is the most successful platform, and then interview them. So always have a backup. Just did that recently for a client in Europe. We thought that one would be the right route, but the platform didn't like the type of securities they were offering. So they wanted to do a convertible note, and the platform didn't like convertible notes. So we had to choose a different platform. It was originally our second choice. And so that's why we went down that route. I find in the US, that can be an issue as well. Often in the US, they want preferred shares, the platforms. And sometimes companies aren't willing to do that. So that might count out some of the platforms. So get that little grid in place, and perhaps I'll put one in the chat, one that we've used before, and you can just, take out the content we've put in and add in your own content. It'll give you an idea. But pick up those top 2, get on the phone, get a sales call, and interview them, and make sure that they're going to be able to do what you want to do, because you really are in control here. Okay, well, I hope that helps choosing your platform. As ever, go into the chat, join the community, and keep asking questions, and we'll help each other. Thank you very much for joining today.